All right, before I start talking about the Shingo curriculum changes here, I want to add a little bit more information about the European conference that we have coming up. In that conference, I'm going to be doing two sessions on Wednesday. That's like the first day or the day before the conference, whichever way you look at it. In the morning session, I'm doing an affiliates only session, which is primarily a discussion of the Build Excellence course. I'm going to go through that and kind of give an explanation of how it should work structurally, how you would execute that class. And I'll answer questions on any of the other classes if you have any other questions on any of the other workshops. It's primarily to just give you like an overview of the Build Excellence class. In the afternoon, I'll be doing a workshop in about 3 hours as well on supply chain. What's going on in supply chain? What are the changes? What are the tweaks and improvements and so on that make that will help you to optimize the supply chain? I've had a lot of questions about that, so I thought I'd just have a conversation about what some of the new nuances of supply chain are, like digital supply chain, like supply chain risk, some of those things that would be interesting to some people, I guess. So anyway, those two things are happening on the Wednesday of the conference. If there's an interest, I know a lot of you are going on the tour in the afternoon, and that would probably take precedence because you have customers that are going there on the tour as well. But if you're interested, that's there. Or if you have a client that's interested, that's available. What we're going to talk about today is this agenda here, curriculum, course changes, other plan materials, that kind of a thing. In the curriculum area, what I want to do is just give you an overview of what's going on in each of the classes. Now, as you can see, the Discover Excellence is the prerequisite, of course. The Build Excellence is the capstone. Build Excellence, the objective there is to actually end up in the end with a plan for execution of some of the principles, some of the improvements, some of the systems changes, actual plan for how to make those changes, and you'll hear more about that when we get to that course. The three courses in the middle, the CE, CI, and EA, those three courses structurally are the same. They all have the same kind of content. They all have a company video at the front end. They have videos on each of the principles. Testimonials is what they are, those videos. They all have a case study. They all have exercises, that type of thing. They go around each of the principles. And that's what the objective is of the middle three courses, to get the people very familiar with each of the principles. And of course, you have the GIMBAs with each of those, and you have a GIMBA on the Build Excellence as well. Going to the first course, Discover Excellence course, there have been some small minor tweaks, but unless you're looking really close, you won't even notice them. And the tweaks are mostly around spelling errors, that type of thing that we caught and that we fixed. But the slides, the structure, all of that is still the same. It would be good to download the latest version just so you have those kinds of things all fixed. The other change that's come to the Discover course is that we now have a Spanish and a Chinese version of those, and we're going to create a French and what was the other one? Portuguese version as well, and we'll create new language versions as the demand comes about, as we have demand for that. In the Cultural Enablers course, the thing I want to stress here, the big thing that's different about that is that in this course, the case itself is a book. It's the book Leadership and Self-Deception. Leadership and Self-Deception is a book that they need to read offline, and it's a really easy read. It's an overnight read, but it wouldn't be good to try to do it, smash it in between the first and second day of class kind of thing. It would be something that you'd want to buy the book and give it out to the attendees ahead of time, or have them go out and buy their own copy ahead of time and have them read it before the class, and then in the class you can attack the various principles um, in cultural enablers. They're really exemplified well in that book, better than any case that we could come up with. So that's why we're using that book. But it does require a little planning ahead of time. On the worksheets themselves, we have had some conversation and debate about how to do the worksheets. The decision has been made that we are going to do 2 workbooks, a workbook without the worksheets in them, and a workbook with the worksheets in them. And then we're also going to have a file available for you to print out just the worksheets if you want to print them out on the 11 by 14 size sheets of paper. We're going to give you both options so that you can do it either way. A lot of people like the separate sheets, the larger sheets. They're a lot easier to read than having it in the workbook itself. If you want to do it that way and you want to do it without the work, I mean, it's going to be like the worksheets themselves are going to be 40 pages, 40 additional pages in the workbook in the Build Excellence course. You'll have with each of the courses those worksheets that are relevant for that course. So you'll have access to those. And those worksheets, I've used them. The people really love them. They're very easy to work with, especially things like on the end you have potential questions that go along with each of the behavioral benchmarks. You know, what kind of questions you're going to ask. It's not just about ideal behaviors and systems, but it's also about KBIs and about questions to ask around those. So they've been really valuable and really helpful. So anyway, those are the different options that you have available. Looks like in the workbook, they commented to me that when this gets into the workbook, it's a little bit hard to read, and they'd prefer having the larger sheets printed out for handouts. If we do that, we would probably eliminate the pages that are in the workbook, but I need to get your reactions to that, because if you don't really want them both places. Like in the continuous improvement course, there's 5 principles, 2 pages to each principle, right? So you got 10 extra pages in the workbook that you don't need. They're expensive. If you're going to print them out as full-size large sheets. So
is that A3 size?
It's
not the A3.
Yeah, it's the larger than the A3.
11.
It's 13 by 20 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're really big sheets. They're like 13 by 20-ish. And if you prefer to do that, I haven't cemented exactly what we should do. I think that if we go one direction or the other, we should go that way with everybody. Right now, the tendency seems to be to prefer the larger sheets. If you have an opinion on that, I'd sure like to get your feedback on it. For those of you that have done the second course there. Anyway, that could be a change that we have in those middle 3 courses. Right now, it is in the workbook.
Okay, so the vote, Bob Miller has a question about the case study in the Enabled course about the book. Mm-hmm. So if you use the book, Bob, what is your question? Is it carefully controlled? We're not going to be providing that book.
No. The book, how you get the book to the student is really kind of up to you as to whether you want to, buy it for them and give it to them, or just tell them to order it off Amazon and get it themselves. It's kind of under your control. The case, we have to charge for the case, but because we have, the right to use that case, we have to pay for that case through the normal process. But the book, you'd have to figure out how to get that book to your students.
For those of you who don't remember, the book is not embedded in the workbook. The case for the Discover course, the NUMMI case, we are tracking and paying for that after the fact, after you've submitted your list of attendees for the Discover course. We are assuming from this point forward, anytime you send us your list, you're using the NUMMI case and giving each person a copy, and we are paying for it after we get the list. The book, Leadership and Self-Deception, in the new Enable course, you must figure out a way to provide the book or have your students get the book in advance and read it.
The only exception to what Jamie's saying is if you're going to a medical institution, for example, you may use the Virginia Mason case instead, but still the procedure's the same. We have to pay for that use of that case after we get a count on it.
For Discover.
For Discover.
Are there going to be any options for the Enable course for cases?
What we're trying to do on the other courses for the cases is we're trying to write our own cases based on prize winners. And so that's the direction we want to go in all the other courses beyond after the first two. We have written 2 of them already, and we're working on another 3. So
we've got a couple of votes for the large sheets. When you go back to what you were, if you want to back up a page, looks like they would prefer the larger sheet, and they can take it out of the book.
All right.
Let me ask Dom if we can make that an option for.
Yeah, I already got that. Okay.
Oh, he can put it in or out. Can we give them the option at the time when they go to print the book?
To do that, we'd have to give them 2 versions of the book, one with the sheets in, one with the sheets out.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
All right, so let's go. So what you're going to end up with, it sounds like the decision is what you're going to end up with on the website is three items. One is a version of the workbook with the sheets in it, a version of the workbook without the sheets in it, and then the sheets of
Separately.
full size, ready for full size printing. So you'll get 3. You'll have to look for those 3 and make a decision what you're going to do. Let's go with that, if that's okay with everybody. I'm going to go charging on because our time is limited. If you have any other thoughts beyond what I just said, let me know. In the CI course, the Continuous Improvement course, the big change there is 3 days. But other than that, structurally, it's the same as the other courses. You do 2 principles, you do a case, you do a go and observe, your Gemba on those 2 principles. Day 2, do 2 principles, do a Gemba. Day 3, do the last of the principles, and then do a in-depth Gemba, which also includes all the principles, all 5 of those principles, and focused on a specific, what is their problem within their facility that they want to stress and work on the most. So structurally, that's the same as the other courses, but that's a 3-day course. Enterprise alignment, like I said, is structurally, again, the same kind of thing. The only difference being that we have 2 dimensions in that course, and I've drawn out the fact that the 2 dimensions are really different. You got the alignment dimension, and then you've got the results dimension, where we talk about the customer, and I draw them out a lot more in the class, so they are actually looked at differently, and you've got videos that are set for each of the 2 different dimensions, and tries to draw out those principles a little stronger. But other than that, that course structurally is the same. You again do, you have a company video with some testimonials. You have testimonial videos on each of the principles. You have the case, and you have a Gemba. Time-wise, for those 2 courses, the continuous improvement one will be out next week. We have it all done. We're just doing some spell checking, that kind of a thing on it. It is ready to go. And the alignment, maybe another week. It's at the same stage though, but we're getting the continuous improvement out, and then the alignment one right afterwards. Those are both basically ready at this point. All the videos are done and everything for those 2 courses.
Okay, so a question, let me stop.
Okay.
A question from Elish is the pricing for the CI course different from the other to reflect the 3 days? Yes. And this year, in August, when I did all of the new license agreements, I sent each affiliate leader a very clear email. We had discussions about it. The new pricing matrix is in your your license agreement to reflect the exact amount that you would charge if we took the regular course, split it in half, we added the price for one more day. So you'll see that there is that option and the pricing for a 3-day. And yes, Bob, we will put the large sheets for each of the principals.
Yeah.
Yes, on each of the, we'll put them on the user site. So to clarify, we'll have one option, a participant guide with the sheets embedded in them, the smaller size. The option to print the participant guide without the sheets, and third, the option to print the sheets separately, the larger 2011 by 20 or whatever they are, the bigger
Large, the full-size sheets. Each course will have the sheets for that course in the user site for that particular course. So you're not going to get all the principles. Maybe I'm reading more into your question than you really had there, but you're not going to get all the principles in all the courses. You're only going to get those principles that are specific to that course. So the middle 3 courses will each have their sheets corresponding. So if there's, like in the first course, there's 2 principles, we're going to have 4 sheets to print out. The continuous improvement, where there's 5 principles, you're going to have 10 sheets to print out, that kind of a thing. So, but the Build Excellence course, which will draw back all the materials from those previous 3 courses, will have all the sheets for all the principles. So you'll actually get, in the Build Excellence, you get the full collection of sheets. Yeah, Bob, you're saying the dangers that people will read the sheet instead of thinking it. It's true. We've marked all over the sheets that they are just benchmarks. They're just ideas, and that they're not all inclusive. If you feel like you don't want to use those sheets in your course, you don't have to. It's not like a requirement, but they are definitely an aid for teaching the principles and helping understand what qualifies at different levels and how to grade them. Where I've found them very effective is distinguishing between what is a level 1, level 2, level 3 performance on the different types of behavioral benchmarks. Each benchmark has various levels of performance, and we're asking our students to grade those levels of performance. What is a 1, what is a 2, what is a 3, that kind of thing. And that those sheets help them understand the difference between a 3 and a 5, for example. If we let the students create their own definitions of those different levels, then we get some confusion. And so the sheets have been very helpful when I've used them.
Okay, so Mike suggests we don't.
Yeah, I don't hand out the sheets until I don't hand out the sheets with the book up front. I hand them out when we go into our GIMBA to help them with the GIMBA, help them define what questions are appropriate to ask in the GIMBA, that kind of thing. That's the point where I introduce them. Okay, so really it's a tool, okay? I mean, I see the different comments, but really the sheets are a tool, and they're really an excellent tool. We're using them several different ways, and I'm probably going deeper than you need, but for the examiners, they're a great tool to help them understand what is the different levels of performance, and what is a 2 and a 3 and a 4, what does that mean when they're grading. So it's great for examiners, and in the courses, it's great to help the students also standardize how they evaluate their observed behaviors. This is observed behavior, a level 2 or a level 3, that kind of a thing. So anyway, it's a tool for you.
Do you want the option to have the sheets blank, empty?
They kind of, we could. They kind of have that with that little worksheet that goes into the book already. Right. That's really what that was kind of intended to do.
Okay.
But I mean, we can supply them anything they need. Yeah.
Give your specific feedback if you want to give more detail. directly to Gerhard, and we'll work on getting what it is you want with those sheets.
Take a look at them and you know, give me some guidance and feedback on them. But so far we've used them and they've been very effective. Now we did the Build Excellence course. That's the new course. We did a first run of that course this week, and then we're going to do a second run of it in about a week and a half. And after that point, we'll do some polish, and then that course should be ready to go too. So I'd say within a month, you should have the Build Excellence course live, assuming there's no dramatic artwork changes or recording changes. That's usually what takes the most time. But my goal, my vision is that we'll probably be ready with that course in a month or less. In the Build Excellence course, just running through it really quickly, the focus for day one is, well, we do a little bit of a teach back, as you can see here, and then we go through a stair step, which we call Flow to Excellence, a stair step of how you start with principles and work your way up to results and the various thought processes that go into that. But really the focus of the class is to say, okay, we have these behaviors within our organization that we think that are weak, that are not performing as they should. And the focus is, okay, so how do we tie that to the systems that surround those behaviors? And then what changes do we have to make to the systems to improve those behaviors? And then how do we create a plan of action to execute? That's what this course is all about. In the end, you come out, the deliverable that you come out with is a plan for action for improvement of systems and the resulting behaviors to drive you closer to ideal behaviors. So in this course, you're doing the stuff that we just kind of introduced in the other classes. You're actually executing that. But what we do is, in the normal class, is go through that structure. How do you create that? How do you identify behaviors? How do you identify systems? How do you modify systems and all of that? Then we do a case on it. And then we do a Gemba where we actually go live with the organization and go out and dig into their systems and their behaviors. There's some prioritization that goes on in the selection of which systems and which behaviors you want to focus on. But once that prioritization is done, then it actually becomes a project that you go out there and try to execute on and do. That's the focus of this particular course. I'm going to walk through a few more of the slides. On the right-hand side, you see the 10 steps that we walk through, starting with foundational purpose and principles and behavioral benchmarks, and we build all the way up to results. And we have a number of breakout exercises that are in there, like focused around identifying behaviors and identifying systems that create those behaviors, that type of thing. The case is the case that I've got in there for now is a prize winner case. We're going to actually have like 3 options, but that's the one that's in there now. And then we're going to trial run different cases in different runs through the course and see which ones are effective and which ones aren't, that kind of a thing. That's the one that's in there at this point. The trial run that we just did, I throw this slide in there so you can see the kind of projects that we worked on, but this is the trial run that we just did this last week, Monday, Tuesday at ICON. And we had these 4 individuals that were involved in 4 teams. We broke it up into 4 teams. They came back with very satisfied, I think, in the end. They were quite impressed with the results. So I think they got what they wanted out of it. It worked, but I'm just throwing you this so you can see what kind of things we've done, and they seem to work. They're working on, they understand how behaviors and systems interconnect and how that connects to principles. And this is what I called the process of, driving within the organization. I called it bringing it home. And I want to stress, I brought through this slide in because I want to stress that for this particular class, you really need an organization that has standard work and 5S in place. I mean, if you don't have standard work, then you really have nothing to work on. And if you don't have 5S in place, then you really can't have standard work. So they're kind of basic. If you need these two pieces in the organization that you're going to Gemba in order to be able to make an improvement, or you really, all you're doing is creating another system. And then in the class, I asked the company or the customer to bring with their strategy map, and then all the behavioral benchmark information that they generated from the previous 3 courses. Remember that this capstone course shouldn't be taken until all the other 4 courses have been completed. Also, it's helpful, item C there, it's helpful to have some kind of an insight survey completed. It doesn't necessarily have to be our insight survey, but the idea is that there's some kind of an analysis that allows you to hit the road running when you get into the course that says, hey, here are some weaknesses that you might want to work on. It helps you, get focused a little quicker when you go into the class. But all of these things are things that should have been part of the previous courses anyways, and they should just all be consolidated when you go into this last course. There are 2 major breakout sessions, 2 major Gemba efforts. And the first one is all about confirming that the behaviors that you anticipate are the actual behaviors that are occurring on the floor. You're trying to make sure that you understand what is happening. I stress in this piece, that, it's really important to just go and observe. You don't have to be asking questions the whole time. You don't have to be, do this Shigeo Shingo thing and just stand there and watch sometimes. What you want to do is make sure you understand what's going on, understand the behaviors, and then you can go back and assess what parts of those behaviors are wrong. This is where we become behavioral and observational experts. That's the idea here.
Bruce is asking how much time is allocated to observation.
I gave about an hour to an hour and a half.
And we did ask questions. For instance, we were working with a particular group of that on their suggestion system, and so we did go and ask, to try and see some reactions about that suggestion system. We asked some questions to we took 5 or 6 or 7 people in all different parts of that organization and asked them the same kind of questions about that particular system that we were working on. So there's observe and there's kind of validate, right?
Right. That's right.
That's what we were doing.
That's right. Because what you do in the classroom setting, when you're sitting there filling out the sheet and talking about the behaviors that you're anticipating, that you want to observe and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what you're talking about then often isn't exactly what you see happening. And so what you're trying to do is confirm that on the floor that what you thought was going to be going on is or isn't going on. And so that's the first part here. We're trying to make sure that we're working on the right problem is one way to say it. There's a question up there from Bob Miller that maybe is more for you.
Yeah, I'll address that when you're finished.
Okay.
Bob, I'll take care of your question about completions if we have time at the end. If not, we'll take it offline.
So the key for this slide or this breakout session, which, what I did was I think we actually went over the hour and a half because in the company that we were working with, they had it's a major sin, I know, but they hadn't actually completed all the courses, and so I had to kind of help them along a little bit. But as you see in red there, the goal is to confirm and study the existing systems and the behaviors and create a plan, ultimately for changes to the system that will change and reinforce the ideal behaviors. So this session, this breakout is all about confirming what you think is true is really true. And then the part 2, the second breakout, is the creation of a plan. And in your organizations, what you're doing, you create the plan and you actually work with the executive group. Again, in our case, we had the executives in our room with us, but normally you don't have that situation. And what you have to do is go to the guy with the money and say, this is what we need to do in order to accomplish the goal, the behaviors that we're after. And do you agree with the plan? Do you support the plan? Get confirmation and get a timeline on it. And that's then becomes your execution plan. What we're trying to walk out of this room with is a plan that will, come to life. And that's what we did with the organization we did a couple of days ago. We walked out there with due dates and a plan that was going to execute the changes that we were talking about to create the behaviors that we're after. So,
can you say Mike Orzen's question?
Do we provide an example for the deliverables? There isn't one in the book, but that may not be a bad idea. Would you want that in the book, or would you want that as a separate, maybe in the teaching notes? I'll hang on for that answer. But that might not be a bad idea, what the deliverables look like. Right now, I just give you an outline of what should be on the deliverables, but I don't have an actual example.
The answer to Mark Baker's question, Gerhard just said, yes, it is a prerequisite to take all the courses before this build capstone course, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Mike Orzen says outside of the book, keep it for teachers' notes. Okay, I'll add that to my to-do list, an example of the deliverables.
So now Bruce is asking, how do we apply this to a public session, or is it more of a private course?
It's definitely a lot easier to do this in a private course, but yeah, we realize that there's going to be situations where this has to be a public session, like with the MBA class that I'm doing in a week and a half. I'm actually doing a trial run with the MBA students, the executive MBA students. What we're going to have them do is each group, by group I mean those people that are all working with the same company, will have to work on a project for their own company. But another way to do that we thought of also is that maybe everybody, even though it's a mixed crowd, focuses on the facility that we're going to do the Gemba on, and that's kind of what we had to do a couple of days ago. We had a mixed group, and we focused everything, all of our examples, on the company that was on ICON and their issues, and we put a member of ICON into each of the teams so that they could explain their issues, and we focused on their issue as opposed to our own personal issues. It is a little more challenging as a mixed group, but I think it can be done. We did it last week.
I still think it's learning. It's learning how to do it, and if you're helping someone else with their project, then I think if I were to come back to my own organization, it would be easier for me to implement. So I think there's going to be a little bit of, you're going to have to look at it and see how you might work with your clients. So Bob asked a question about, he gives a certificate for completion of all four of the courses. Bob, I think you may be the only one doing that. We don't do that. We track and keep track of every person who takes every course. If someone were to apply to become a facilitator, an affiliate, an examiner, would we look to see if they've taken all the courses to include the build? We probably would. That would be a bonus, a plus. So I think it's up to you, Bob, when you want to implement that, if you want to include that. Right now it's an option, but I think it's a great option to add it in. So at this point, Bob, it's up to you how you want to implement, if you want to make this part of your cohort. But the ones that are currently going, yeah, it is too late. But in your next round possibly would be good to add the build course.
Just a couple more slides, but keep the questions coming. Other planned materials, and this is just, I've mentioned these things before. We've got these 3 books that are in red committed. We've got them all under contract. The other 4, the black ones, are actually under contract but are not committed to a due date, whereas the other 3 are committed to a due date, which is like February and March of next year. But the black 4 are not committed to a due date because we don't have an author for them, and if any of you want to volunteer, that would be an interesting idea. But right now, just the 3 in red. I'd say into first quarter next year. The magazine and the dictionary are out there beyond that. Demonstrations, My Educator. Some of you are using My Educator. Maybe Jamie has more comments on that than I do, but some of you are using My Educator very successfully. A lot of you aren't. I think those of you that are probably should tell those of you that aren't if it's a good thing or not a good thing. Maybe that's a good conversation for you to share, and we can put it into the newsletter or something. I don't know, Jamie, you got any thoughts on that?
That's fine. Yeah, it's still available. There's demonstrations working with My Educator. They've been very flexible. We're going fine. So let me know if you're having any issues or problems. You want to answer my question?
Yeah. Mike, let me make sure I understand. It says there are many people asking for the build, but they are not interested in attending all the courses. After 1 or 2, they feel they understand the model. It is the build piece that is missing from their understanding. Unfortunately, I agree with you that a lot of people, that's where I'm getting a lot of pressure too. They think that they understand the model after the second course. My recommendation still is to take all of them, because what you're doing in the continuous improvement, when you drill down on each of the principles, if they miss that drill down, then they really don't have a good understanding of that principle. They think they got it figured out, but they don't. But I guess the ultimate answer is it's your job to evaluate them. But my strong recommendation is that they take all the courses, because they really won't have all the materials that they need to finish the job in the end.
We'll track it. Let's see how we do. Let's keep it this way for now. Let's keep the fact that all the courses need to be taken before you get into the build, and then maybe conversely, Mike, it will draw more people to take the other courses. We'll see.
Yeah, you see, like the problem that I worry about is that you'll get into the build course, and then you'll have people asking questions that really would have been better answered in the previous courses, and they'll draw away attention from the actual efforts that you're trying to accomplish in the build course. You know what I mean? It is a problem, but anyway, it's not desirable if they don't take all of them. Definitely prefer. All right, wrap up. There's nothing really there. I just, if any of you have any other thoughts or questions, you know my email. You know how to get a hold of me, and Jamie as well. And I hope these courses are helpful. We've tried to make them. I mean, I've tried to make them your courses and put all of your thoughts and ideas into them.
So what we're asking you to do is please go to the user site and download the newer versions, making sure that you have everything completed with the newest and latest. Don't use the one you stored on your laptop from a year and a half ago. Things have changed. There's new videos. We're making changes. So each time we're going to give you these webinar updates, assume at this point that the newer versions are ready and on the user site. And the print files are there also. Yes, they are. Is everything there up to date?
Yeah, I've had the question asked on why can't you take the workbooks and modify them, but apparently the format that they're created under is not modifiable. I mean, we can modify them here, but when we put them out there, you're kind of stuck with that structure, with that layout. Whereas the slide sets are PowerPoint, and you can, modify them and adjust them whatever way you like. Yeah.
Remember, though, it's RIP that you signed on to do, so we're not sure that when the impression of putting the bill.
Yeah, that's why we took the name. We used to call it the execute course or something like that, but we took it to we changed the name to build because it's teaching you how to, but it doesn't do anything about guaranteeing you the prize, not at any stretch. It just teaches you how to work towards that. But I understand your concern. Yeah, we don't want to leave the impression that you take the build course and all of a sudden you're ready to win the prize. That would be way off track.
So the build course is not completed. We will let you know when it's been polished and ready to use and launch and print and use. But it is coming. We want you to be able to talk about it. We're testing it. It looks good. We're having a 2-hour session right after this to go over any changes that the whole team attended the course. So we're going to be doing that soon.
Yeah, and then in a week and a half we do a run with
another test.
With the executive MBA program, and then after that we should be pretty darn close.
Hey, thank you everyone for attending. We'll send out the recording as soon as we can get it wrapped up and ready to go. I'll send it out to everybody. If anyone misses that on your team, if I've missed anyone, please feel free to share it with those on your team. Thanks, guys.